Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is a Venus Unplugged, your virtual heartbreak hotel. Your host is Llorraine Neithardt, and what we do here, what we attempt to do, is to discover and understand the myriad ways that Venus, the principle of love, and Eros operates in our life, is in our culture. And what we're discovering now is how it's in our fairy tales as teachings, you see. And also, I want to thank everyone who has congratulated me via email on being one of the 100 top psychics in America. So it's a great honor, and I appreciate your thanks and your congratulations. It feels very, very good. Thank you. So where did we leave Snow White? All right. Last time she was, the dwarfs took her up the mountain. She bit that apple. She went for the trick, and she falls down as if dead. And they take the coffin to a mountain, the 7 dwarfs. And then the birds come, the owl and the raven and the dove. So if you want to look at this, listen to last week's podcast, and we can go over what the meaning of that. But basically, they represent also the 2 colors of black and then the white, which are also the colors of transformation within the individuation process. And that's a Jungian term, and the individuation process is essentially the maturing process. The war of opposites that goes on in all of us, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And so this is part of what this fairy tale deals with. Now, all fairy tales, when you read a fairy tale and you're going to interpret it from the Jungian perspective, you see it, that every character in the fairy tale is the one person. So this is a story of Snow White, the way too innocent girl who at 7 is, has to run from the witch and, you listen to the other parts. And then she lives with the dwarfs for a while, and she starts her individuation process. And then she falls for the 3rd trick from the evil queen, and she's dead. But the dwarfs love her so much, and she's so beautiful, they can't bury her. They can't put her in the ground. So she can't go unconscious. Going into the ground is not being seen, going into the conscious. And then the dwarfs write her name on the coffin, on the glass coffin. And they also write in golden letters that she's a king's daughter. So that's kind of interesting. Also in fairy tales, usually the colors gold, silver, white, black, red, sometimes green, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow. But the other colors are the main colors, which are also the colors of alchemy and transformation. So there she, and each night someone stayed round the clock dwarf care and mourning. Then the 3 birds come. But it's interesting, the last bird that comes is the dove, and that is Venus's bird. So there's a hint here, we're about to have a turn. Now what does that mean in our lives? Sometimes we get a good message, or we get a dream that says no, or we literally see a dove. At one point, before we got too conscious or too intellectual, actually, we could commune with all animals. Serpents too. Everything spoke. So the last one, and then the prince shows up, the king's son. Now, he's not particularly a hero, right? He's just like walking through the forest, and he happens to find this glass coffin, right? And he's not going to go through any difficult task. What he does is he wants to buy. You know, he tells it to us, I'll give you everything I have. I'll give you my riches. I'll do this. Just let me take her back to the castle, right? And the dwarfs agree to this. But as she's being carried in the coffin, the servants trip. The poison part of the apple, which is stuck in her throat, her mouth, falls out. Glass coffin opens, and she's sitting up, which I think is very interesting. So the poison never went in. It never digested. It got stuck in the throat, in the fifth chakra. And what does that mean in the world of the feminine? Very often, you know, women's greatest challenge and maturity is when she can have the sovereignty of her own voice, saying what she feels, what she needs, what is true of her being, not someone else's, not the father or the accountant or the husband's or the religion or the whatever. What does she feel? So while Snow White appears to be dead, and we've all had this Snow White in the coffin moments when we're in a depression, we're looking out as if we're in a glass coffin, stuck in a museum, just looking, not knowing, laying there, not knowing anything that's going on. Okay, and we ask ourselves the question, you know, am I still alive? You know, what happened to my life? I'm just as if. I see this so often when people come for a reading, and I discover this long forgotten or never known or repressed talent. It's like, what's this? And it's like, oh no, that was just a child's dream. You know, so that talent, that ability, that eros, that love, that gift is stuck in a glass coffin. And suddenly, if they have the courage, and it takes enormous courage to individuate. Individuation is not for the foolhardy, believe me, what you go through, because you really have to bring up the opposites and shadow and light within the self, and balance them out. And that's not an intellectual. That's through long journeys and a lot of dreams, and I mean, there's many paths to this. You know, this isn't the only path, but this is the one that I had to like, or had worked for me, or I dedicated my life to. When I realized it was my fate to assist, to use my gift of clairvoyancy to assist other souls in their evolution, it was terrifying. And of course, through synchronicity, I found the work of Carl Jung, and I went into I went to a Jungian. And if I had known what I was going to go through, I'm not so sure I would have done it. But what was terrifying to me was, okay, I'll see what I see, and I'll feel what I'll feel, and I'll know what I know. But what if it's my own material, and I'm projecting that onto another person? That was unbearable for me. Absolutely, because it was like, wow, that's really not fair. So that's what led me to the Jungian work, okay? And I spent 25 years, every Wednesday, working on my dreams and working. And so when I speak of this, it's through living experience. Not only have I seen the mountain, but I've been to hell several times. And also come back with a little piece of gold and information. So that's what led me to this work and this language, because this gift is one thing, but to not have the language of psyche, because I wanted to use the gift to help the evolution of the soul, to people for that. the predictions, well, they're there. But, even if there's something that's there, people can refuse it. They can walk by the beloved because he looks like a nerd or it's not their picture. So, we screwed this up. So, but also we can transform it. So here we have with Snow White proves by 3 times falling for the evil stepmother's trickery. She falls for it. But then this king's son comes along. So he's not a hero. He wants to give all the energy, money is energy, all the energy he has, all the money to pay for her to come back to his castle. But it's through the folly or the clumsiness, or in some ways nature trips them up, that this miraculous event happens. I guess they didn't have the Heimlich thing going on then, but here we got it now, all right? And how does that happen in our lives? Some ridiculous occurrence or what can be a mishap or a misunderstanding suddenly is the one thing that brings us to consciousness. And what's so interesting in any of the fairy tales or mythology, we actually cannot buy this miraculous turn of events. The prince is willing. The prince represents the woman's animus, the positive animus, who is willing to give everything, to give his kingdom, to have union with the feminine. But what happens is it winds up being a gift from nature. It's not the buying of the coffin and bringing her back that brings her back to life. It's nature itself, which is why the dove was the last one. The dove heralds in. The dove is Sophia. The dove is the Holy Spirit. So this is what's so, and every time you read a fairy tale, I think I'm going to go over when I finish this, just kind of, how to start looking at fairy tales and interpreting, because it's very interesting. And I prefer the Grimm's fairy tale because the Hans Christian Andersen, they've thrown in too much religion and Christian morality and what their belief is. And fairy tales are ancient. They're primordial. They've changed over the centuries, but usually they don't have any kind of religious moral, this is right and this is wrong. These are blueprints for becoming whole or maturing. And this particular one, Snow White, is the maturing of and the integration of the negative part of the shadow, because shadow can be light, shadow can be golden. And that integration, and that's what brings maturity. And with the mature feminine, there's so much more understanding. It's you can love in a completely different way. You can understand in a completely different way. And the kindness and generosity you can have towards yourself opens up so much more creativity and for others. So that's part of why this is such a profound story. So we don't want to banish our creativity into a glass coffin and all those hopes and those dreams. We want to cough up that poison apple that we've stuck in our throat and be able to speak and say, no, I want to do this. I mean, I was floored when my little inner Snow White said, I want to make shoes. It was like, what? I had no idea. The only hint I had that I would become a shoemaker and literally make shoes was when I would be doing readings and I would say something clairvoyantly, which is what I'm supposed to do, and the person would say, well, why are you saying that? And I would say, because I'm a shoemaker. That was the only hint 30 years ago. And then it came to pass. So the workings of psyche, well, besides being eternal, okay, as the workings of Snow White. She goes into the woods, which is the unconscious individuation process, at 7. And that's the interesting thing. Time is very different in fairy tales, and there's no allotted time. It's whatever it takes. And that's also the attitude that we need to have about consciousness. Whatever it takes. We're somewhere between here and eternity, so chill. And it's glorious. So, as it says here, so now Snow White lay for a long time in the coffin and did not rot, but rather looked as though she was sleeping, for she was still as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony wood. But it happened that a king's son came into the forest and arrived at the dwarf's house, and there spent the night. And then on the mountain he saw the coffin of the beautiful Snow White, and he read what was written in golden letters. Then he said to the dwarfs, "Let me have the coffin. I will give you whatever you want." So this is very interesting. He doesn't know that he's very often, the male is, slaying the dragons and doing all this. In this case, no. In this case, it's all Snow White's transformation. She's got to do the work. She's being allowed these possibilities. Help is coming along. Danger is coming along. The negative part of the shadow comes along. It develops an opposite in us, and we're like, oh, why did this disaster hit me? Because we need the tension of the opposites. I just had this discussion with a woman yesterday, and she was concerned because her cat has been suffering. And she said, but why? My cat is so good. Why does my cat have to suffer? And it's like, well, the suffering brings up the opposite. We wouldn't ever know our desire or gift for healing if we didn't see suffering. You wouldn't know that you're capable to transcend all levels of love, to give up so much to help your beloved animal, which really is the feminine within. So that's why we have to, there's no plot without evil. And it's something that people have a very, very hard time with. We need to be able to see it for what it is and name it and outsmart it or integrate it, transform it. So the prince represents, the creative impulses of life that are coming up from deeper realms, and impulses that we all have to come out of our death-like trance. It's called unconsciousness. We're hypnotized. So often people are hypnotized. They can't see the beauty. Because the beauty restores. What makes something beautiful? Or someone beautiful? It's the principle of Eros. Eros is this invisible kind of force. It's an archetypal energy that we go like, wow, that's beautiful. And when we go, wow, that's beautiful, our heart opens. We don't have to own it. We can just look at it. That's the purpose of art. Art is the restoring of our hearts and souls through beauty or some type of strong emotion, because art is supposed to create strong emotions, whether they be beauty, whether it be disgust, whether it be horror, something. That's why we look at it, not to just say, oh, God, I've seen the David. No, I've seen magnificence. In many ways, man is its greatest danger. Humans can be very, very dangerous, but they can also be absolutely divinely inspired and miraculous. And that's not going to change, because that's part of what this planet is about. Maybe it's the planet of individuation, that we come here to play out these opposites. Maybe this is the planet of pure alchemy, if we would perceive it in that way. All right, so we've got the prince. He's willing to give up everything. And this fateful folly or accident happens. And up sits Snow White. I mean, can you imagine the shock? I mean, that's the amazing thing about fairy tales. You know, the horse is talking to you, the mirror is talking to you, and nobody goes like, hey, what's with the talking horse? That's when we're in the state of fairy tale, which means we're in this state where we're not intellectually processing everything. We're moving through. We allow it to happen. And this is quite wondrous about this language. So, you know, in the language of fairy tales, you know, princes and use of royal blood and princesses, they're the redeemers. They redeem, they bring back. So this gives the basic power, an event that Snow White can now use, because this young prince is the future king. And what is the future king? The future king is the soul's new powers. So he's the positive animus in the female, the soul's new powers, who will give all for this transformation, the beloved prince within, who wants the best and the finest for you. Not the negative prince, not his evil brother, but the positive one. You all have that in you. And so this soul's new power is what's going to help Snow White integrate. And he invests everything to have this coffin. But the gift, it's still given as a gift. And if you've noticed that in your life, you know, you'll put great effort and outfits and everything you do, but the gift, it's always given. That's the nature of a gift. It's just, and we try so hard and nothing happens, and that's the paradox. And that it is, we make great exertion, which is what we need to do. And people say, yeah, but I'm trying everything. I tried everything, and I'm exerting. It's like, keep on doing it till you fall down, okay? Because when you finally fall down from the absolute, you've exhausted the ego and what it thinks it can do, then the gift is given. And people say, why did I have to go through all of this? And then when I wasn't paying any attention, everything changed. That's the nature of Psyche. That's the nature of Venus. This is how she works. Who are we to say, hey, bitch, show up when I want you? In the strangest way, it's all perfect. It truly is. If we have the maturity to wait, to understand, to work with what we're given, and still keep on wanting to, you know, we don't completely surrender into misery. We just say, okay, it's got to be a pony in this somewhere, all right? And that's how we start relating, because, you know, that is what maturity is. We've been through so many phases, and we know there's a beginning and a middle and an end, and that is the great round of life. And we need to understand that in spite of all our efforts, nothing can be gotten by force. The real thing remains a gift. Neither sacrifice nor action or renunciation guarantees success in the realm of human relationships. Did you hear that? I just think all of us just fainted. I did, okay? So I just said that, didn't I? Yep, I put that right out there. Okay, so in spite of all efforts, nothing can be gotten by force or manipulation or trickery. The real is the real. So the real remains a gift. Neither sacrifice nor action or renunciation guarantees success. We can't bargain like, okay, I'll give up this if you'll give me that. Yeah, right. Sometimes it may happen just because it's going to happen anyway, but it's not because you were able to bargain with the divine. So this gift is given to both of them. The gift is given to the prince, who had to be astonished. Who is this chick? Right? If you saw this happening, it's like, wow, kind of amazing, right? And she's also not a vampire. She's a princess. And her. See, so without the two positives, the inner and the outer, this transformation couldn't have happened. So it's a release of the fifth chakra, and she finds her voice, which is the whole point. The prince only knew one thing, that without her, there was going to be no life for him. So dead or alive, he was going to have her. And, we've all had feelings like that. Without this beloved, I'm just not the same. I didn't even realize. And that most of all goes for internally. Without your soul, without conscious relationship to the positive animus and the negative animus and your soul and the archetypes and the whole thing, it's really not a very interesting story. We're just walking around rowing with one oar. So that's what this is about. And like in all relationships, we say, oh, I need this person unconditionally. And then we start our nonsense. If you loved me, you wouldn't take this trip, or you wouldn't, whatever. If you loved me, that's always a power play. And power and love don't work. And that's also one of the humiliating transgressions that we're all capable of and have to look at. It's like, when did I use power when I really needed to use love? When was I using force or trickery when I needed to let love grow and be, with me or without me? Because when the will comes in, we're in trouble. I can't believe this. Okay. I've got 90 seconds. So, we will continue. Yay. So this is what we're working with, and we're going to go through the prince and what's going on here with Snow White and her transformation from princess to queen and what this all means. So have a glorious week. Seems like a lovely spring day here in New York City. And embrace the opposites. Just notice when you secretly want power and not love. If you love me, you would do this. Or if a voice within says, if you really cared, you would just keep your mouth shut and not start trouble. Well, the way you say it doesn't have to start trouble. It may start consciousness, which can feel like trouble, but it's not war. It's just conflict. Wherever there's conflict, that's where we're growing. So there we go with that one. Okay, next week. Also, if you want to make an appointment, 212-757-8914. Go to the website and certainly download the episodes. And you could download them on your phone and tell the world. All right, my Snow Whites, next week.